I call it the stare. You take the settlement, you open the workshop, and then you just stare. You're not sure what to build first, so you just start building. 2 hours later, you're out of supplies. You envision something clean and organized, but now your settlers are sleeping outside. The problem wasn't the build, it was the plan. Today, I'll show you the 5 steps that I use before I ever build a single structure. Next time you open that workshop, you won't stare. You'll know exactly what to build. Welcome to part 1 of our Tenpines Bluff renovation. Today, I'm kicking off a 4-part series to turn this early game settlement into a place our settlers can call home. But before we build anything, we need a plan. And the framework we cover today isn't just for Tenpines. You can use it at any settlement you want to develop properly. And at the end, I'll give you a preview of exactly what Tenpines will look like when we're done. So, let's get started. Before I begin anything, there's one thing I always do first: connect the settlement to my supply line. This gives me access to the building materials stored in my other workbenches. So I'm working with everything that I have available, not just what's on site. If you'd like a dedicated video on how supply lines work, including how to set them up and manage them across the Commonwealth, let me know in the comments, and I can plan that for a future video. Before I touch a single piece of scrap, I walk the entire settlement in build mode. I'm not building, I'm not scrapping. I'm observing and taking notes. The goal is simple: learn as much about the settlement as possible before building anything. Identify what can be scrapped and what is unscrappable, land features and obstacles that may interfere with our structures, and what the settlement already has and what it's missing. As we enter Tenpines, a few details stand out immediately. The entry is cut by a small bluff on the approach. That's going to shape how we think about defense and access to the settlement. On the right, there is an unscrappable shack. Inside, there are 2 unscrappable mattresses. Because the shack and the mattresses have to stay, we'll work these into our build design. On the outside of the shack, the wood supports are secured to the ground by cinder blocks. Although they can be scrapped, I'm going to leave them. They add to the realism of the structure. Near the workbench, we encounter an unscrappable campfire, one of Lucas Miller's stops in the Commonwealth. I'll keep this area clear and work around it. Throughout the settlement, there is an unscrappable stone wall, another feature that will need to be worked around. As we approach the ruined house, there's a pile of wood debris. Debris piles can sometimes cause collision problems with the building, so I'll keep this in mind during the design phase. The ruined house. I'm looking forward to renovating this and turning it into a proper home for our settlers. Inside, there is a scrappable bathtub and an unsheltered mattress on the floor. We'll address that in just a moment. The back corner of the house sits almost on the build boundary, another important consideration for the renovation design. Outside the house, there are deep grooves in the land, which may cause pathing problems for our settlers. Surrounded by an unscrappable stone wall is a small tato farm, worked by 2 settlers. Keep in mind, you can't move these settlers to a different settlement, but you can assign them to a supply line. The crops are already assigned and producing enough food for the current population. More on that shortly. Moving up the hill, we find a number of scrappable trees that lead to the highest point of the settlement. And there's also a path that leads back down to the front. So what's missing? The settlement only comes with a cooking station, which is surprising for an early game location. The essential crafting stations, armor, weapon, and chemistry require level 2 of the local leader perk, which means you need to be at least level 14 with a charisma of 6. So crafting stations will need to be added later if you don't meet these requirements. Now that we know what we're working with, let's define the space. I marked the building boundary with wood fence posts, placing the posts at the 4 corners and scattering them along the side borders. I used the white posts because they offer a little bit more contrast against the terrain. I also used them to mark the entrance paths and the idle marker positions that Lucas Miller and his crew use in the settlement. Here's why this matters. Outside of build mode, the green boundary disappears the moment you close the workshop, but the posts remain to mark the boundary. This gives you a permanent reference for the usable space and lets you walk past the boundary to scout the best locations for turrets and guard posts. They're also used to plan exactly where the settlement entrance should sit before committing to any structure. With the boundaries marked, there's only one question left. What do we want this settlement to become? Should it be a self-sustaining settlement or a trading hub on the north? Maybe a Minuteman outpost or a Brotherhood of Steel stronghold. It could be a railroad safe house or an Institute surveillance facility. The possibilities are endless. Since this is an early game settlement, I'm going to develop it into a small, self-sustaining farm. I envision a total of 6 settlers, 2 for farming, 2 guards, 1 scrap scavenger, and 1 provisioner. Now that we know what the settlement will be, we have to determine what the settlement needs. Every settlement has basic needs necessary for survival. A settlement needs a minimum of 1 unit of food, water, defense, and a sheltered bed for each settler. The values are displayed on the HUD in workshop mode. This settlement currently has 3 settlers, 2 that came with the settlement and 1 provisioner assigned to the supply line. But we're planning to expand to 6 to cover defense and scrap supplies. With that in mind, we'll need a total of 6 food, 6 water, 6 defense at a bare minimum, and 6 sheltered beds. Let's go through each one. Although the shack provides shelter for 2 beds, it's not suitable housing for our settlers. And that 3rd mattress is out in the open. I'm going to scrap it and put a sleeping bag inside the shack to provide temporary housing until we build a proper home for our settlers. The current farm produces 8 food. That's sufficient for our planned population. We may want to swap out the crops later to produce something more beneficial to the settlement, but that's for a later episode. Tenpines currently has 3 waters supplied by a manual pump. We'll need additional water to support our target population. Because there's no natural water source here, we're limited to the manual pump or the Wasteland Workshop powered water pump. The settlement currently has turrets covering the entrance and sides, but it needs better coverage built into the overall design. A few guard stations and strategically placed turrets should do the trick. One quick note before we move on. When the basic needs are met, happiness will gradually climb on its own. For Tenpines, we're targeting 80. And this series isn't about maximizing happiness, it's about building a functional settlement that provides the settlers with what they need to survive. With all of the information that we've gathered, let's design our settlement. We'll cover the Tenpines renovation across several episodes, all without any mods or glitches. In the next episode, we'll renovate the ruined house, move the settlers out of the shack, and give them the home they deserve, with plenty of sheltered beds for everyone who will call Tenpines their home. Following that, we'll convert the shack into a traveler's rest stop, fully equipped with a porch and crafting stations. We'll also tackle the food and water. We'll build a home for the Brahmin, and we'll swap out the crops to grow essentials for producing adhesive, one of the most valuable materials in early game. And to close out the series, we'll lock down Tenpines for good. 2 guard stations, improved turret distribution, and depending on settlement budget, defensive walls to finish the job. And that's the planning phase for Tenpines Bluff. 5 steps and a clear picture of exactly what we're building and why. In the next episode, we'll start the renovation itself. The ruined house gets a complete rebuild, and our settlers finally get a place they can call home. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you at our next build site.